All right. And we are on. It is currently August 1st as we're recording this. And today we're going to talk about Dusty Hill, the great late Dusty Hill. And we're going to talk about the Dallas Rangemaster, and we're going to talk about the movie Danger Diabolik from 1969, I believe it was. How you doing, Mitch?
Yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Kirk?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Nice. I went out yesterday and my work had kind of a thing yesterday and everybody met at Dolores Park.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I haven't been out because of the pandemic. And I got to Dolores Park and it was just mobbed with people. There it was kind of a little uncomfortable because there's so many people and they were so close and none of them were wearing masks. And then you know, there was some guy and his friends like this guy he's rapping and he's got a wireless mic and then his friend has this like I don't know some PA speaker that's like blasting out the audio right and and it's super loud right it's just like incredibly loud it's like hurting my ears loud and then the guy he's coming up to everybody like singing kind of in your face and I was like 6 feet 6 feet like get back up it was kind of annoying because it was like
I've been in no, yeah.
it was super
I've been in
annoying.
Dolores Park when like a band is like set up their shit and they're like blasting everyone in the park and they're like, yeah, don't call the cops. Like they were acting like they were some kind of outlaws. I wish they were, but like they're acting like they're of the people and they're like offending the people. I mean, in my opinion, like I'm trying to sit there and have a nice time, and these jackasses come up and start disturbing the peace.
Yeah, yeah, it
I
wouldn't
know
have
it's not a
bothered.
very rock and roll attitude, but
Yeah, it wouldn't have bothered me so much if the guy wasn't so like kind of up close, and then
mhm.
I was talking with other people, so like he interrupted our whole conversation, because it was all about him. And then they were kind of handing out these flyers like, hey, like us on Instagram, and I'm like, no, you're interrupting my conversation. You're in my face. You're like too loud. I mean, it was like super loud. They had to be loud because there was also like a truck that was like blasting out something music on a PA. So their PA had to be louder. It was just stupid volume
That's
for being
terrible. Do you remember their
outdoors,
name? Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
if you remember the name, we can talk shit about him on our on our station.
He's probably got more likes than we do, more subscribers.
Yeah, probably. But we could we're building up to it. We can our followers can go to war against his followers.
I don't I don't really think it needs to come to war, but I mean I just feel like people should respect other people's personal space, like you know what I mean? Especially
Yeah,
in
yeah.
these times. That includes not
Hmm.
just physical, you know, positioning and whatever, but also like audio. Like, you're in my audio space with your music.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a place for that kind of thing, and it's Market Street.
Yeah. Well, I
There are
mean,
some really great acts down on Market Street. Like, go where you're where people can walk away.
well, yeah, I feel like that's different too. So if you camp out somewhere and people come to you, then it's like going to the bar. You're like, I'm paying to be here. They're gonna have music. It's gonna be loud. I understand that. But it's like I'm there. I was already there. I'm talking with people, and then you move into my space. Like that's where I think is like, where the problem occurred.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah, I agree.
anyway, that was kind of my first foray into the public, since a year.
Hmm. Performance and public spaces. I'm gonna plug. I think they're called like the backyard party band or something like that. It's like they have this really like very descriptive of what they are kind of a name. It's like a very basic name, but they're really great. And they do, like the woman who sings with them has an amazing voice and stellar range. And then one of the other guys does some rap, which I'm not really into rap, but like they're a great band, and they perform right down by the old Apple store, that was on Market and it's at Stockton Street. And they
Yeah,
do
cool.
that like a couple of times a week.
I'll have to go check them out. I haven't been
No, they're
downtown
great.
in a
So
long time.
yeah, I kind of pass by there every day. So that's one of the highlights. There's another kind of a spot on Market Street where the guy sets up a drum set out of buckets and pans and things like that. Sometimes there's a guitarist there and they just play along with the radio or something. I don't know, but um, they're not bad.
I think
And
I've
then there
seen
was
those
the
guys
Michael
before.
Jackson impersonator.
Yeah, I think I've
Yeah,
seen
they're
those
they're
guys
pretty
before.
entertaining sometimes.
Yeah, there used to be the Jimi Hendrix guy too, who just does a passable Jimi Hendrix, but it's just fun to have the Jimi Hendrix guy. Like he'll
I'm sorry.
play down there, I haven't seen him in a long time though.
Oh, is he dressed up like Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've seen that.
Oh, you never seen Jimi Hendrix guy?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, it's been a while, so maybe he's not around anymore. I don't know.
Okay. You know who I have been seeing recently is Frank Chu, the
With the
world's
sign.
longest protester. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
think he's in the Guinness Book.
Oh really? Oh funny. But
Yeah.
he's like protesting like weird alien like Area 54 or whatever. I don't know, he protests like strange
Well,
stuff.
I think he was protesting Bill Clinton, who um, robbed him of his acting career. It had something to do with the 12 galaxies and some
Yeah, that's it.
some
The 12
space. Yeah,
galaxies. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing something like on his sign that was like an advertisement. So like he'd have his 12 galaxies thing on the front, and then on the back it would be like Blondie's Pizza or something like that.
Right. Yeah, he's good exposure because he gets a lot of mileage. I mean, he's just like he's all over the place. So there have been a number of businesses that have advertised with him,
Yeah, funny.
and
Yeah.
I guess he's trying to recoup from his lost acting career.
Yeah. I'm surprised no one's like, put him in a movie like in a bit part or like, kind of as an extra.
I know. There's a new Avengers movie, or it's not an Avengers, but it's a Marvel movie. It's some character that I don't know, but it's set in San Francisco. It'd be really cool if he was kind of like in the background.
Yeah. He should have been in one of those Star Trek movies because they've done a couple Star Trek movies in San Francisco. Probably the
Right.
early ones, he wasn't around like when they did the early ones, but they did that one of like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, that was kind of a newer Star Trek with the young Kirk and young Spock.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were go to try to be lore friendly, Frank Chu will not be around anymore by that time. So you'd
True.
have to make up some story. Why is Frank Chu
It's
in the
Star Trek,
year,
dude. Time travel, man.
21, whatever?
You know?
I suppose. I mean, yeah, because Spock does it in that like previous movie, I think.
Oh yeah, 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 right. Yeah, it's like the old Spock talking to his younger self.
Right. Yeah. So there could be like a old Frank Chu talking to his younger self. Oh, wait, no, that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Watch out
I
for
don't
Bill
know.
Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so what are you working on?
Well, today I was working on my Gretsch. I was trying to buff out some of the problems that I had with it, and I kind of burned through it. So um, it's time to move on. Get back to painting. But I did actually. I picked up a new project. I got a Dallas Range Master kit.
Awesome. Where'd you get the kit
I'm gonna
from?
build that, I think, this week. Yeah. It's called General Guitar Gadgets.
Oh,
General Guitar Gadgets.
yeah, they're super like old school like DIY guitar thing. They're like one of the original like, buy a guitar PCB kit project site,
Okay.
They're
Well,
they're
they were great
total
to deal with.
OG.
I
They've
mean,
been
the
they've been
kit
around
showed up
since
super
like the
fast.
early 2000s,
Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think
Well,
it's cool
yeah,
to support
I
them.
thought the price was really reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I know I could get the parts a lot more inexpensively if I were to go to Taita and just like, like follow a schematic, but uh this will be a nice project. I actually my boss and I are going to, he bought one too to work, see how that goes.
Cool. Let's see what's in the box.
So how about you? What do you work? Oh, let's open. I got my knife here. Okay, well, it comes with a box that's drilled. It's a little bit bigger than the what is it? Like the 1504B or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the
Those regular old
1590B.
pedal boxes.
Yeah, the MXR ones.
1590B.
Yeah, and then that box is, they call it a 125B.
Oh, okay. Probably even says on here, but it comes with a sticker. Or wait. Oh, it's a little guide. It's a guide to the bands on the resistor, or I don't know. I can't read it right now.
Nice, you'll need that.
Yeah, I will need that. And a little note, thank you for buying it. And then it comes with my receipt. Hoping that I'll see some instructions somewhere, like an actual schematic. It came with wire. Here's a little potentiometer and
Take a look.
Yeah, can you see what's in here? It's a little tiny potentiometer, and then it's got some resistors and transistors and things in here.
Capacitor.
Capacitors. And it comes with the printed circuit.
Nice.
Oh, it's got a battery thingy.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, that's a mount for the
yeah,
PCB.
I figured this is for the PCB.
Yeah, to mount it inside the box.
Okay, that's nice. Came with rubber feet for the box. The switch.
Nice.
It's a knob.
You need that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have any knobs that would work otherwise. Yeah, it came with 2 of those mounts, so I guess I'll use 2 of those. And it comes with 2 jacks, or 2 audio jacks. And 2 audio jacks. What's this?
Oh, it's a socket for the transistor. Turn it around. Let me see the back of it. I think that looks
Oh,
like a
okay.
socket.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a
Okay,
socket for the
cool.
transistor. So
All
that's
right.
great. So you could try different transistors in the circuit to see what they sound like.
That's right. Yeah, and you said you had some germanium ones.
I do. I'll totally sport you and Dustin with some transistors. I
Oh, thank
actually
you.
had all my transistors out for a project, so you can see I got like a bag of them. I got like a couple bags, right?
Cool. Yeah, I think I didn't go for the germanium upgrade on this one.
Oh, well, I got a bunch right here. Like there's a whole ton in here. I probably had like 50 or 60 of these. I bought a bunch on the internet and then I used some of them. And then like the germanium transistors, like they are kind of inconsistent. So, you know, you'll order a transistor, like a bag of them, all the same part number, but if you measure them, they'll all have different gains and some of them will be like wildly different from the others. And, you know, some will be kind of leaky. They can be leaky. They're kind of lower quality parts than silicon, right? And the thing is like, you want them like, kind of like you can get better sounds for certain circuits if you have transistors that don't leak very much and have a gain in a certain range. So I used a bunch of the ones that I found in here that were kind of good ranges, but now I'm kind of stuck with a bunch of these that are kind of in not ideal ranges for fuzz boxes, but they're in a good
Okay.
range. There's a bunch in here that are in a good range for the range master.
Oh, great.
So like I could make a bunch of range masters. So I can give you guys some transistors.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, and since we have the socket, it's pretty easy to swap them out, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you do eventually solder them in to the socket.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, you want to do that because they can fall out. Like I've had that happen before,
Right.
or like they kind of come loose, so you hear some crackling, you know. So like once if you use a socket to test them, and then when you're settled and you're like, okay, I like this, this is gonna work, then you can even solder them to the socket
Okay.
and
Yeah.
just make it permanent, right? Don't even bother taking the socket out. It's hard to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think we did a video where we tested a bunch of different transistors in a overdrive or a fuzz pedal using a socket.
Yeah, maybe we did that with the big
If we
mom.
actually published the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention the range master because I got all these transistors out just this week because I built a couple fuzz factories. And so the fuzz factory uses a silicon transistor for the first one, and then it has 2 germanium transistors that follow it. You can actually use silicon transistors for the second 2, but the official version uses germanium. And so I got all these out and I measured them to find some that I thought sounded good. You know, so like this was my fuzz factor. I made 2 of these, right? So there it is, and what I did is I measured them and then I found I identified some that were in the kind of gain range that I wanted. And then what I did is I had made a fuzz factory earlier. This one has some extra knobs on it, but it's basically a fuzz factory. And I used sockets for this. So there's 2 sockets in here. And so what I did is I pulled the transistors out here and I plugged the germanium ones in here to hear what they sounded like in this box. And so then when I kind of auditioned them and I was like, oh, those sound good. And then when I found a set that I liked, I soldered them into this one,
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, it was good. This actually sounds great. Like this just sounded really good. I made 2 of these, right? And I got them both sounding really good. I did a demo and then I wrote a blog post about it too. So I'm trying to edit the video demo and then add it to my blog post and then I'll publish it.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen that pop up yet. So that'll explain it.
Yeah, I got a third board for the Fuzz Factory here. Like, you know, so this was the board that I used. I got this on Osh Park. So Osh Park, like you can order boards from them, but when you publish a board to Osh Park, you can make it public and then anybody can order it. So someone published this board, and so I ordered them. So like I'm always into getting the cheap stuff. So you could buy a Fuzz Factory board. Like this one actually is kind of a nicer board, but it's bigger. So this board probably costs like $10, right? But
Mhm.
I got 3 of these boards for $7.75, right? With free shipping too. So like it was just $7.75 for 3 of them. So they were like $2.75 a piece or something, right? For each of these boards, right? So that was pretty cheap. And these boards are not bad. You know, they have, you know, it's kind of nice, like 3 of the pots mount directly to the board. And then 2 of the pots are kind of off board. So they require wires, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, so I built 2 of these up, and then I have this third one, and either I got to find some germanium transistors. I might try some silicon transistors in this third one, because that can actually sound good in the fuzz face too, or the Fuzz Factory, if you find, you know, some transistors that kind of sound good, you know. I mean, it's fuzz. It sounds fuzzy, you know. It's like, you know, like everybody's talking about tone, but like
Well,
fuzz is
so
like it destroys your tone. It's like, you know, like
yeah, yeah. Uh, Actually, Dustin and I were talking about this on a fuzz pedal. Does a silicon transistor have a like a more brittle or kind of sharper sound to it?
yeah, that's what people say. They say the germanium transistors kind of like it kind of has a softer sound, like it rolls off the highs a little bit, you know, right?
Okay.
My theory is that people really like the germanium ones because all of the music that they like and associate with positive sounds came from the 60s when everybody was using germanium.
Okay.
So people developed, you know, you know, an affinity for the sound of germanium because they're used to it. It's like on their Jimi Hendrix records and their Led Zeppelin records, and you know, their you know, you know, David Bowie albums and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, I really like that sound. You know, it sounds better. You know, but if someone had invented silicon back in the, you know, silicon transistors back in the 50s and 60s, you know, all those guys would have been using silicon, and then nowadays people would be like, yeah, I really love the silicon sound, you know.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, the the point of the Dallas Rangemaster is to give it that trebly sound, and you know, I don't know if Mick Ronson was a big Rangemaster user. I kind of thought that he was, but you know, like Brian May, for instance, very big on the Rangemaster, and uh, I mean, it probably has something to do with the kind of guitar that he was using. You know, that he gets that very bright sound out of the Rangemaster. I mean, of course, the pedal's doing its job, but you know, it could probably be brighter if he had used a silicon transistor based pedal.
Yeah. Well, you said Brian May. I think like Brian May made his own treble booster. Like the guy in the band, the bass player was like an electrician or an electrical engineer. You know, Brian May was like you know,
Hmm.
a astronomer, you know, like he had like some
Mm-hmm.
like degree in astronomy or something like that, right? And so, you know, they would just like do the work themselves. Like Brian May built the guitar with his dad, and then he got together with the guy from the band, and I think they soldered together like a range master type circuit, but they made it themselves, right? And what I think
Hmm.
they did is
Okay.
I think the original Brian May um booster is silicon. It's just it's got a couple silicon transistors in it, I think. I'm not an expert
Oh,
at this,
interesting.
so if anybody is an expert, they can just comment. But I think the original one is silicon, though the Rangemaster is germanium.
Right.
You know, and a lot of the
Okay. Well,
cool
that's
old fuzz pedals are germanium too, but they're only because they came out early. You know.
yeah.
So
Well,
like the fuzz face and original tone benders were all germanium, but later they switched to silicon, right? Because it was just more consistent. Like you could make like a batch of them that sounded consistent, where if you got germanium and you just soldered the parts in, like some of them would sound like crap, some of them would sound really good. It was hard to control it,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I was curious actually, like what after you measured all of your germanium transistors, if there was any place that you can buy them where they give the rating of each
There is,
of.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you can go to Small Bear Electronics, there's a couple places that do this. Small Bear, though, is kind of the classic place, and you can go there and they'll sell you a set. They're kind of running out though, like they don't have a lot, so you can't. The guy used to have sets for, I think his name's Steve Daniels. He used to sell sets for tone benders and fuzz faces, so you could get like two transistors that work well enough, like they're measured and they're ready to work in a fuzz face. And he'll even tell you what some of the resistor values you need to use to get them to bias correctly, right? They still have them, so you can still buy
Oh,
them, but
wow.
they're
Well,
actually
that's
kind of
that's a great series
expensive.
service.
What? Oh, say it again.
I said that's a great service.
It is, yeah.
So that's a great service that he's doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of expensive though. I think if you buy a tone bender set nowadays, it's about like $26 or something. But that's
Okay.
3 transistors, so it's like 26 or $30, so it'd be like $10 a transistor. I think I got like a bag of 50 for like $20 or something. And you can still find them if you go on eBay. The thing is, if you buy like a bundle of them, like a bunch of them are not going to be usable. Like maybe 25% of the bag will be like usable. And the other ones will work, but they just won't make good fuzz pedals.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll find some other use for those other transistors that you have.
Well, okay, so good. Thanks for asking, right? For leading me there, but I can give a couple to you because I think that a bunch of what I have left here would be good in range masters, right? So that'd be good for that. The other thing is I kind of had this idea to just take a bunch of them and cascade them, like just for fun, right? So you could just make a fuzz pedal that was like 3 or 4 or 5, germanium transistors and just see what it sounds like.
Well, it's worth a shot
Yeah.
since you have
There,
them.
yeah, there's another thing you can do. And the Steve Daniels guy at Small Bear, he has a web page kind of that talks about this, so you can go read about it there. But there's like if you take 2 transistors and you kind of cascade them, you can put them together and make like a single transistor, and they call it a Darlington pair, right? So if you have 2 low gain transistors, like maybe you have 2 that are like a gain of like 20 and 10, which is really low. So that's not good for anything. But if you put them together in a Darlington pair, it actually acts as a single transistor with a gain that's the multiplier of the 2. So it would be a gain of 200, which would be really useful,
Oh, yeah.
right? The problem there, though, is it also multiplies the leakage. So that's another factor, is that the germanium ones have a leakage, and if they leak too much, they're not good. Like they can sound kind of noisy or not biased correctly. So
Okay.
if you have low leakage and low gain, then you can put them together in a Darlington pair. Or there's another thing called a Silscape pair that's like, it's kind of the similar setup, but if you put those together, it basically multiplies the gains. So there might be some of that, like you could maybe turn 2 of these into 1 useful transistor. I don't know. You could experiment.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So I have to ask, how do you measure your transistors? How do you measure the leakage?
Oh, Well, you know what I do is I've been using this thing, the TC1,
Mhm.
except I blew this one up, it died.
Oh, wow.
Something happened and it won't turn on anymore, it's dead. So,
Okay.
but I was using this and it's pretty cool because it tells you the gain, it tells you the leakage. They call the leakage ICEO,
Oh,
right? So
okay.
it doesn't say leakage, but you got to look. That gives you like 4 numbers, right? And it gives you the HFE, which is the gain, and then it gives you the ICEO, which is the leakage that you're concerned with, right? It also tells you, and this I find like super useful, is it tells you what kind of transistor a device is. So it'll tell you if it's NPN, PNP, JFET, or a MOSFET, right? It'll even tell you if it's a Darlington, I think, right? Because you can get Darlingtons in a single package too, right?
Oh, okay. And they look like a single package. They're not two things.
Yeah, yeah, but it'll be like 2 transistors. Internally, it'll kind of act like 2 transistors,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But and they typically have like a really high gain, right? So anyway, so this thing's super useful, right? It'll also tell you, besides telling you like what kind of transistor it is, it'll tell you what the pins are. So if you plug a transistor in here and it's a BJT and it'll tell you like, oh, that's an NPM, and pin 1 is the emitter, pin 2 is the base, and pin 3 is the collector, which like you kind of need to know if you're going to plug a transistor into a circuit. If you put it in backwards, it doesn't work or it gets burned up, or you solder it in and then it's really hard to get it unsoldered so you can turn it around, right? So I'd recommend this to anybody. I have
Right.
another one, except this is the first one I bought, and this one never worked right. Like it only works if you plug it into the computer, and then not very well. Sometimes it doesn't work, So I got this one out and it's kind of working, but I don't know, I might have to order a new one because it's so useful. And
Oh,
they only
yeah.
cost like $15, so it's pretty cheap.
Yeah. I was lucky. Mine worked right out of the box first time.
Oh,
You
nice.
know,
You have one of those?
yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I might have to get another one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you don't have one that's working 100%, then
Yeah, yeah.
most
And then this
definitely.
one's just totally dead, you know. I don't know what happened. I think when I plugged it into the computer, I shorted something, or when I put the plug in, it kind of shorted out and kind of killed it. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not really robust machines. They're not really meant to handle a lot of abuse, I guess, for $15.
Yeah, they're pretty cheaply made, right? Which is like, that's why we're only paying $15, right? I think I plugged it in
Yeah.
and then my computer said the USB device is using all of the USB current or something. Like it gave me this warning, like saying disconnect the USB device because it's using up the computer said something like I can't power the USB devices because one of the devices is taking all the juice. Right. And so that gave me the impression that
Right.
somehow this thing shorted out internally when I plugged the USB into it. Right. But I don't know.
Well, don't blame yourself. It's probably some kind of a short or just from repeated use.
Yeah. Yeah. I was using it a lot. Like I measured like all these transistors like 3 times. Like I measured them all. I made a spreadsheet. I just measured, and I have
Wow.
actually more too, because I have a couple bags here of some more transistors. Like, here's a couple more right here, right?
So
Like,
how do you keep track of them? Like physically keep track of them?
oh, you know what I did is I took a Sharpie and I wrote a little number on them.
Okay. So that's why you have their spreadsheet.
I don't know if you can read that. Like this one's number 23, I think, right?
23.
Yeah, I think that one says
Yeah.
23 on it,
Okay.
right? So I just wrote a little number on each one of them, and then I wrote it down in the spreadsheet, and then I wrote down all the values that the tester measured, you know. But I usually had to run the test like 2 or 3 times because you have to write down all the numbers, and the test just shows the values like for a couple seconds. So I'd start typing and then it would go away and I'd have to press the button again. I think I just like wore the machine out, you know. I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah.
And then it died when I tried to charge it again. I don't know. But anyway, yes, I did that, and that I made my spreadsheet, and then I could go through my list, and then after I had the list, I could say like, okay, I want one transistor with a gain of about 70, and then another transistor with a gain of 100 or greater. And I had a couple in the list that fit those values. I have a whole bunch in the range of about 50 or 60. Like I got a whole
Okay.
bag. Like these are all like 60 to 69. And then another bag here that's like 50 to 59. So like the 50 to 70 range, like I have a whole bunch, right?
And what are those best for?
Range
Are those kind
masters.
of like those are best for range masters? No
Yeah.
fuzz.
They could be good for maybe like a tone bender. So
Okay.
the tone bender, like the Mark II, has 3 transistors in it. So like you can use lower gains because each one kind of boosts the signal. So if the first one boosts it a little bit, the second one boosts it a little more, and then the third one boosts it again, right? So so it kind of works. It'll kind of work for like a tone bender Mark II. So like, yeah, I think it could be good for those. I don't know. This other
Cool.
bag I have here, these are all like, these transistors are all PNP, which is old school germanium. You'll notice like the tone bend or the range master kit you got didn't come with a power jack, probably. Right? So it has to run off a
Did
battery.
power jack? There's
Yeah.
one.
Oh, maybe it did come with one.
Oh, there's a power
Does
jack
it
right here.
say NPM
Yeah.
or PNP on it somewhere?
On the power jack?
No, just on the kit
Let's
somewhere.
see. I don't know. Probably if I went back to the website, might have bought this from Reverb. Um, yeah, this is a general note. It doesn't say anything about the kit itself.
Okay. Well, see, the thing is a lot of the older stuff used PNP type transistors, and those circuits use a positive ground, right? So when it uses a positive ground, you want to power it from a battery, because otherwise all the noise from your power supply, like all your other pedals, especially if they're digital, they put a lot of noise on the ground, and that actually ends up going into your circuit on the positive rail, right? And so they can create a lot of noise unless you run them off a battery.
Interesting. Well, I'll also read about this. There's probably a like a guide on their website.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
can
actually
look at.
kind of
I
the
just
cool.
opened it up now.
I was going to say that's actually the cool thing about these transistors right here that I got, because these are like, they're old school germanium, but they're NPN, right? So the NPN ones, you could run them with a negative ground, right? But like they didn't make too many of these. These are like harder to find. I just found some on the internet, and I have a bag of about 20. Some of these are not good though. So like out of the 20, maybe like, I don't know, 5 of them will be useful, right?
That's pretty crazy. I mean, there's really, I can't think of very many products where you buy it and hope it works, or you have to, call the bad ones.
Well, that kind of reminds me of that uh, Boss Wazacraft tone bender collaboration.
Mhm.
So like they made 3,000 of those pedals, and they all have germanium transistors in them, right? And the reason they only made 3,000 rather than just, as many as they could sell, right, is because they had a limited supply of transistors.
Right.
So if they made 3,000 of those, they probably had like, 10,000 or more transistors, and then they had to throw away a bunch because they weren't suitable, right? And the Wazacraft stuff is supposed to be kind of like, kind of boutique and kind of like, handmade, not so much handmade for Boss, but like probably hand adjusted, right? So they they made a limited run of those because they didn't have enough transistors to do more.
Yeah. Yeah, I wondered if they actually do throw them away, if they find another use for them.
Well, the thing is, in
Yeah.
other circuits, like the transistors that we are not going to use in our fuzz pedals or boosters or whatever would be useful. They'd still be useful because it doesn't matter. But in our case, like the audio effect of them, like kind of like is dependent on the gain and the leakage.
Right.
Right. So if it's high leakage, then it might be noisy, where like if you had like a switch that turns on a light or an LED or something like that, like leakage doesn't matter maybe, but like, if it's audio, you hear like a, you make a pedal and it's always like you turn it on and you're not playing anything, but you hear, like that's like not useful, right? So that one you have to throw it away, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be very good.
Yeah. Hey, so yeah, we should talk about that range master. Tell me when you and Dustin get started. Maybe I'll make one too, and we can discuss the range master.
Yeah, that would be good. We'll make sure to document the sound of them and make video of the construction and just talk about how that goes.
Yeah. Hey, I got one question about your range
And you're just going to
master.
make one from scratch, right? I mean, it's not a very complicated circuit board.
No, it's pretty simple. It's like,
Yeah.
a couple, maybe like 3 capacitors and like 4, 5 resistors and a pot. It's like super simple.
Yeah. I have a feeling this is going to be an afternoon. It's not going to, I mean, the box is drilled and everything. It's not going to take a lot of work to
Okay.
put it together.
So I got a question though. Okay. So there's a couple ways you can
Okay.
make the range master, right? If you just make it like the old school original range master, it's probably going to run off a battery unless it's an NPN version of the range master. Okay. If it's like the original
Okay.
range master, it's PNP and it has a positive ground. So in other words, the plus leg of the battery connects to the ground in the circuit. Okay. What a lot of people do, like kind of modern pedals, they'll use a charge pump, which is a little chip that generates a higher voltage. So you can make a higher, or kind of set it up so it does a lower voltage. So you could use the charge pump to generate -9 volts. So your range master wants to run off -9 volts. So if you want to run that off your regular power supply with a charge pump, you could plug it into your one spot and then generate -9 volts inside the pedal. So I'm kind of curious, does your range master have the charge pump?
I don't think it does.
Let
I
me
didn't
see what
see
the
anything that looked like a little chip.
let me see what the circuit board looks like. Does it have like 2 rows of 4 little legs on it? No, it doesn't. Yeah, so it probably doesn't have the charge pump on it.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. Well, send me a link to the project, like the PDF or whatever they, whatever information, the docs they give you for it, right? And you
Okay.
can take a look at that.
All right.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Let's do it. That'll be fun, right? Because I think the range master is cool. It's cool to have a booster, right?
Yeah, I know. I have a regular boost pedal, but I've never had a range master, so this will be cool. And I've always loved that sound. That treble boost sound.
Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to sound pretty good, like just right into your amp. I don't use it that much. I like the super hard on, which is like a booster too. Like I always use that one. It's a little different though. That one's got like a little more high end. It doesn't have the germanium sound. It's got the MOSFET sound. It's different.
Yeah. You said it's got a more high end.
Yeah, it's pretty sparkly.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just noticed that it's louder. That's all. I mean, maybe my booster isn't a super hard on, but I would assume that it's that kind of a thing.
Could be. There's all sorts of boosters you could get, you know, like it could be an op amp booster, could be like the Electro Harmonics made a thing called the LPB1, which was like, what was it? Linear power booster is what it stood for. And it was basically like a BJT, like a silicon transistor, kind of like the Range Master, but a little different, you know, but
Hmm.
similar. And that was really popular. People like that a lot too. It came later though, like in the 70s or something, right?
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know anything about this, but this is a clean boost. This is what I have, the Boosta Grande.
Oh yeah, I don't know that one. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so we'll do that. That'll be a project coming up, you know. I'm off work, so I can have some time to work on this stuff.
Well, you seem to get a lot done, anyways. So, um,
Yeah, I had a pretty productive week. Like I made the two pedals. I drilled a couple, or I drilled a couple enclosures or milled them, right? I made an enclosure here for another DRV because
oh,
I have
nice.
those boards.
That's a straight up aluminum box.
Yeah,
That's cool looking.
yeah, I was gonna try and like put some ink or something into the engraving and then clean it off, kind of try and
Mhm.
make it kind of black, like in the lines, you know. I did another one too. I engraved this Big Muff. I use this enclosure. It's got like kind of a military kind of olive green powder coat. It would have been cooler
Okay.
if the lettering was in black. But I can't really do that because I'm just cutting through the powder coat, right? So
I think the
anyway, so
legibility is better this way.
maybe, yeah, so I just made one of these too, so that's gonna come up. And then I got another, I'm gonna do another pedal in this Boss enclosure. So I took this apart and I'm gonna stuff another pedal into this Boss DS1.
Ah, okay. Cool.
So that'll be the third
It
one of those.
continues.
Yeah. You know what I did? Actually, let me show you something just for fun. So when I built these two, I got the other one over here. So I made two of these Fuzz Factories, right? So there's two, they're just exactly the same, right? And what I did with these is I used this like soft touch switching, right? So it's basically like a electronic switching system. I kind of did that in that other Boss pedal, right? I used the relay,
Right.
right? So like this little board, it has like this orange box right there is like a little switch, like that's electronically actuated, right? But on this one, I used a very similar thing, but I got it from somewhere else. So that one, the small one there was from Mad Bean, and it uses a microcontroller to control the switch, right?
Okay.
So it has this little chip on it right here, right? Like that little chip, that little 8-pin dip right there is a little microcontroller that's programmed. And, it reads when you hit the switch and then turns the LED on and activates the switch or deactivates it, right? This one I got from a guy on the DIY Stomp Boxes forum. I had asked a question on the forum about the soft touch switching with the relay. And one of the guys there, Eric Vincent, he runs a website called DIY Guitar Pedal, and they have a YouTube channel also. And so he kind of generously offered to just give me a couple boards that they were working on that do the same thing. So you can see here's their board right there. You can't see because the switch is underneath it and the relay's on the other side. But he sent me two boards and two relays. And so I bought the other parts and I put that together and put it in here. This one is a little different, where the Mad Bean board uses the microcontroller. This one uses all discrete components. So instead of a microcontroller, it has like it's like a little 8-pin dip called, or a 16-pin dip called a quad NAND gate. Right? So it has a quad NAND gate on here, and this is the NAND bypass, right? So I tried these out. I put them in both of these pedals right here, and they work pretty good. And it was pretty easy to wire up too. It's almost like paint by numbers. The board on the back, I don't know if you can't quite read it here because the wires get in the way and it's pretty small, but it basically just says, one of the pins says input jack, one of them says output jack, one of them says, PC board in, PC board out, and then it's like ground, and then, power supply in and power supply out, right? And then you just wire it up. So input jack goes to the pin, output jack goes to the pin, the effect in here goes to the PC board in, you know what I mean? It was pretty easy to do.
Oh, that's great. It's really generous of him to give you those boards. So what was your motivation for looking into that soft touch switching?
Oh, great question. So originally I wanted to do it because I was working on these Boss pedals, rehousing the stuff in the Boss pedal.
Right.
And so the Boss pedal doesn't allow you, or it's not easy to get like a like one of those 3 the 3-pole switches in there, right? So those stomp switches, the blue ones, the classic one, like it's hard to fit one of those in here. It doesn't really work. But these have like a little switch that's built in that you could use with the soft touch switching. Right. So I wanted to do it because of that, and then actually after trying it, I was like, actually, I kind of like this. It works pretty good.
You mean you like the process of building it that way? Or, I mean, because on that type of pedal, you could easily use the stomp switch, but
yeah,
you
true.
just like the aesthetic of clicking on the button.
That's a good question. You know what I'd say is there's a couple things. Okay, so one, cost wise, the stomp switch is cheapest because you can get those for about $250, right? So they're pretty cheap and they're pretty easy to wire up, right? They're not hard to do, but they're cheapest, right? For like actual use, this switch actually feels pretty good, like when you tap it, because it doesn't have a click. You just kind of touch it and it works. So it actually feels just the same.
Okay.
And then I would say that like wiring it up is maybe about the same amount of work. Might even be easier to do the soft touch switch, but let's say that's about the same. So they're pretty equal, and you're paying more for the soft touch switching. The only real advantage that it has, and this is maybe important, is that it'll last longer potentially. So those stomp switches they're good for about 30. It depends on what kind you buy, because you can get better quality ones, but if you just get the cheapest ones, they're good for about 30,000 clicks. Like that's their failure rate, right? Which I wrote about that somewhere, like how long it would take you, how many gigs you'd have to play, if you played a pedal and you used it on the chorus. Like I did the calculation, I forget what the numbers are, but I wrote it on my blog. Like I was like, if you played this pedal every week at the bar and you used it on, a 10-song set, and you used it on the chorus of every song, I figured out like how long it would last, but it's good for 30,000 clicks is what they say. The relays are good for like 100,000 changes or more, right? So they're good for about 3 times. They last maybe 3 times as long, right? So I don't know, I don't know if one's better than the other. It's kind of nice though. It's kind of a good, I thought it actually worked well. I didn't really think I'd like it that much, but when I tried it, I was like, actually, this is kind of nice.
I would like to try one. I mean, I have noticed like on songs where I do switch off effects or switch on effects during the song, it can sometimes it's easy to miss. You know what I mean? Um, you're just like waiting for that part, and you just want to like click it on in time with the the drums or whatever, and uh, if you miss, it sucks. It's too late. You have
Yeah.
to like stomp on it again very deliberately. I could
Yeah.
see the feel of the microcontroller being a lot better.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Let me throw one other idea out at you, right? So in the case of this one, since it has the microcontroller in it, you can program it, right? And so actually you can give it behavior, like, not just on off, right? So this actually kind of
Right.
has the advantage, like, and I know that somebody makes one of these. This one doesn't do what I'm going to describe, but I know that someone makes a board with a microcontroller and a relay that does this, where if you stomp on the switch and let go, it switches, like it toggles, right, between bypass and non-bypass, right? If you step on the button and hold it down, it turns the effect on momentarily. And then when you release the switch, it bypasses again. Right.
That
So
sounds cool.
yeah, it's a good idea. So like I think with the relay and the microcontroller, you can actually kind of get into some interesting territory where like you have an effect where if you, and some of the boss pedals do this already, like where you step on it and it goes to bypass, or you step on it and it turns the effect on. But if you step and you hold the button down, it activates the effect, and then when you release, it turns the effect off again. Right. So if you hold it down longer than a certain length of time, then it'll just go back to the previous state, and that's actually kind of a cool feature that you could use musically.
Oh yeah. Do you know offhand which effects by boss would do that?
I can't remember. I don't know. I'm sure
Okay.
they have one that does that, because it's kind of a thing. Like I've seen that, like you can, what does that? Like the looper sort of does that. It's a little bit different. But the looper, like if you hold the button down for 4 seconds, it erases the loop. And if you hit it
Right.
twice in a
Right.
row, then it starts and stops the loop. If you hit it once, it records. So like they're actually doing the same idea. So internally, like it sees you hitting the switch. And if you hit it twice within a certain length of time, it's like, okay, start and stop. If you press it down and it stays down for a certain length of time, then it's like, okay, record or delete, you know?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, my looper is different. My looper has a regular like stomp switch on it, but it has the same behavior. So it probably has some, something under the hood that it is some, like a microcontroller based switch.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yours, even with the stomp switch, those stomp switches, even though it looks like one, it can still be a momentary switch,
Yeah.
right? So it could still be a momentary type, right? So anyway, so that's what I would say. I mean, I think in general, like if you're just building pedals for fun, like the regular stomp switch is probably best, cheapest, easiest to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're like, okay, I want to start getting more advanced, and maybe like I'm building pedals and I want them to last longer, or I want to give them special behavior, right? Then you could start thinking about
Yeah.
getting into the relays, like that might be
Right.
something useful.
Yeah, and there are other potential reasons that you do that now that I think about it. Like if you were to try to make like a kind of like a multi effects unit or something like that, and you wanted to activate effects um you know um kind of remotely, not using the switch. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
maybe.
possible, but like yeah, if you had some like patches or something like that
Oh,
that
for
you
sure. Yeah. Like
that
if
you
you
wanted
wanted to
to.
build an effects loop, like where you had multiple pedals like going through like a patch bay, and activating
Yeah,
different groups. So then you could do that with the relay for sure.
right.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be
that would
super
be
useful.
a complex but pretty cool project. Like the multi effects units that most manufacturers put out. Um, they're kind of too abstracted from using a bunch of stomp boxes. But if you did something yourself that was you know kind of just like a bunch of effects housed under one housed in one box, that would be kind of cool to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that. There's a somebody, who is it? Build Your Own Clone. They sell like pedal kits. They sell some pretty good ones. Um, one of the things they sell is like a guitar looper. It's kind of like an 8-channel loop pedal, and it's super amazing actually. Like it's really pretty good, you know. Um, the way that it's kind of interesting. It just has like, I think it has like 5 switches, but it can do 8 channels, because if you step on 2 of the switches together, it does an odd channel, and if you step on one of the switches, it does the even numbered channel.
Oh
Right.
wow.
So it has
Okay.
some sort of microcontroller inside, so it knows, like, it looks at the state of all the switches and says, oh, you're hitting 1 and 2, so I'm going to activate channel 3, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to look at that. Um,
it's pretty
you
good.
have a you have a looper system that that you started setting up,
Yeah, I do. Mine is
um,
not that complicated though. It's kind of a simpler
bought.
one.
Uh, does that have any of that functionality?
No, the one I got is
I'm sorry.
the one I got is like by Buzz Electronics. It's right over there. So it's got like 5 switches on it. So it just does like 5 channels, like you can have
Okay.
5 loops, so you can put a pedal in each of the 5 loops. And if you hit one of the switches, you can program it so it turns on any one of the loops.
Okay. But you didn't find it useful enough to kind of keep going with it.
Well, I got it to play around with, and then I haven't been playing much. So like, I just like at home, it's not useful. But I thought like when we had the band thing going, like it would be useful because I could hit a button and get like turn on 2 or 3 effects at the same time, you know?
Right.
And I thought that that would be useful. Nowadays, like I'm just at home and I just play by myself. So like, I don't want to set the whole thing up. I can just pull out pedals and plug them together,
Yeah. I mean, I would probably use that at home, but um, yeah, I guess more often I would use it, like at the practice space when I'm playing with other people, because people don't want to wait for you to do the little dance, or the song doesn't want to wait for you to do the dance where you
Yeah, yeah.
switch
Well,
off all.
yeah, well, we were doing some songs and then I was like, oh man, I really want to turn on the fuzz pedal and the phase shifter at the same time, and then maybe I was using something else that I wanted to turn off, right? And so that would require 3 feet, like, or you'd have to tap 3
Yeah.
times, or, you know, so, so that's why I thought that that would be useful, but then I never really got around to getting the whole thing up and running before we split up the band and like, got into other things. So, so then I never really put it into use.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
kind of cool though. Every once in a while I break it out and tinker with it.
Oh, okay.
I actually
That's
had it set up here and then I just took it all apart again. So I had set up a whole pedal board with that thing on it, but then recently I just took it apart.
Yeah, I think like um like configuring your pedal board, it's kind of like Legos. Like when you were a kid, did you like build something out of Legos and then destroy it the next week, or the next day, and start building something else? You
Oh,
didn't just like build something and then just leave it for forever.
no, I would immediately destroy it.
Yeah.
Like I would build it to be destroyed. Seriously, that's like how I played with Legos when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think most kids do. And yeah, it's like certain adults will build the thing that the kit is supposed to make and just leave it that way. But yeah, I've never done that. I've always just kind of like built something, was proud of it. I didn't even take pictures of it. We didn't have cameras.
Yeah,
And then you destroy it and you make something completely different. And I think that's, that's something that carries over into like setting up your effects. I mean, like chasing tone, I guess, is one way of looking at, but I think it's also just um it's experimenting, it's play. You're playing the guitar, you're not working the guitar.
yeah, hopefully, right? It's hard to sometimes, like, you tinker with stuff too much, like, and I feel like, oh, I should be playing more, right?
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, yes. Hey, should we move on? What did you watch the movie?
I didn't watch the movie this week, but I've seen the movie several times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about the movie? Give me your impression there.
Well,
Maybe we
I
should say
wish.
what the movie is.
Yeah, so we're talking about the movie Danger Diabolik. And when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was like, why have I never seen this movie? It's so cool looking. It's like if Spy versus Spy was a live action movie. I mean, it's very like visually bold. Um, Actually, everything about it is very bold. It's a really in your face. It's based on a comic book, and it it was in the, I think that the comic was probably made around the same time in the 60s, and it was a very like I don't know, like there's a lot of corruption in politics in Italy right at that time. And so this guy was kind of a hero. He's this robber. And
Danger Diabolik.
yeah, Diabolic. Yeah, he was basically bankrupting the country. You know, I mean, in the movie, he basically like takes all of the gold, the gold that their money is based on. He just steals it all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I love the movie because there's a scene, speaking of the money, right? So he steals a bunch of the money, right? Like it's like $10 million, which, like, you could pay $10 million for a house in San Francisco and just have one house,
right.
But I guess back in 1968 in Italy, that was like a ton of money, right? But he steals the $10 million, and the police chief or somebody, he's talking with like the minister or something, and they're like, but what is Diabolic going to do with the money? Like, he can't spend it. There's no way he's going to be able to spend it. And then the police chief is like, oh no, like, I expect him to do something weird, or like, I forget how he phrased it, but he'll find something to do with the money and it won't be what we expect. And then they cut to a scene of the Diabolic secret base, and it's like this total like 60s, like, crash pad, and there's all these pillows and like this rotating giant bed thing. And then there's just money like covering everything. He's just spread the $10 million all over the bed. And then as it's rotating, like, a woman's leg comes up through the money. It was super good. I love that scene.
Yeah.
He'll find something to do with it, and then it cuts to the 60s kind of go-go. It's got this great, like, speaking of fuzz tones, Fuzz Factory, great 60s fuzz tones for this,
Yeah.
highly recommended. Use build a Fuzz Factory, right?
Yeah, we don't often think of uh, the fuzz pedal being employed in the music of um I'm having a brain fart. Who's the composer? It's
Oh,
Ennio
oh,
Morricone.
yeah, Morricone, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're kind of used to. I mean, I think people are used to hearing, trumpets and more acoustic instruments. But yeah, this soundtrack is pretty far out.
Yeah.
There's that's that great scene of the like the party pad where all those people are like kind of like doing that stone disco dance, and there's that culty
Yeah.
um, vocals song playing. That it's a really kind of overlooked film.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the music, what's funny, I think, is originally, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I think originally, like the fuzz boxes that people made, like way back in the early 60s, late 50s, the whole purpose was to make the guitar sound like a horn. I think I'm going to go out on a
Right,
limb and say that that was the purpose. Like they were like, oh yeah, we want to get the guitar to sound more like brass.
right,
Right, they weren't like, "Hey, let's make a great sound that sounds like, Jimi Hendrix," which we haven't heard yet. That's gonna happen in 2 to 5 years, right? But,
hmm,
they were like, "Oh, we wanna sound like the brass." And so I feel like, um, Morricone, like, took the electric guitar and that distorted guitar and used that he would score like an orchestra, but that was like one of the sounds. That was like one of the instruments in his orchestra was the electric guitar, and maybe a
right.
fuzz tone,
Yeah, actually, you're totally right about you know, the way that the fuzz pedal was marketed, because it's covered in the JHS pedals the musical, where they had an endorsement with some trumpet player for the fuzz pedal, and it wasn't for trumpet players. It was like they had a picture of the trumpet player guy on the box for this fuzz pedal for a guitar player.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody hasn't seen it, you should see Fuzz the musical.
Or it's the pedal what's it called, the pedals the
JHS.
musical.
Yeah, Pedals the musical, but yeah, yeah, the JHS
Yeah,
um musical. It's super good. It's super fun.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Maestro made a pedal called the Brass Master, and the Brass Master, if I recall, was an octave fuzz,
Okay.
right? But I think what they did is they were like, yeah, we want your guitar to sound like a I don't know, like a trumpet or I don't know what, trombone, I don't know what, some brass instrument.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty funny that so many gadgets are marketed towards guitar players to make the guitar sound like something else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like like a horn section or a synthesizer or like a keyboard, like you have that electro harmonics keyboard pedal for your guitar.
Yeah, I got the B9.
Oh, the B9, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like an organ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently saw a video, the the samurai guitarist or whatever, um,
Yeah.
he's got a channel, and he had this thing that was a pick. It looked like a little comb, and it was meant to simulate all these different kinds of instruments. And I
Weird.
think it was him, but it was terrible sounding, and that was his review. It's like everything, like all of the things that this is supposed to do, it does really badly. It just like it's just sounds like like a cat scratching at your guitar strings.
Yeah. Well, I would say like the Fuzz Factory, um, this thing is pretty great. It's got like a lot of knobs. It sounds super fuzzy, sounds great, but there's a lot of unusable territory in here too, or a lot of sounds that are maybe not useful, or a lot of sounds that are useful in some circumstances, but then the rest
Mhm.
of like 90% of the time it's not useful.
Right. Well, the interesting thing about effects is that, you know, for all those sounds that we consider unusable, there's like a hit song where somebody has found a use for that sound.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, like like Radiohead, they're very much sonic explorers, and um, I think there are a lot of sounds that probably sound kind of repulsive on their own, but within the context of a song, it works very well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, uh, rather than trying to find or reproduce someone else's sound, you can just use whatever and make your own sound. So like, you don't need germanium transistors for everything. You can just use a silicon transistor, get a sound, and that could be a good sound, even if it doesn't sound you know, like Jimmy Page.
Right. Right. Yeah, and then people make their purchasing decisions based on like rumors, or just it's like, oh, I hear germanium transistors are where it's at, or you got to have alnico magnets in your pickups and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
um you know silicon magnets,
Silicon
uh
magnets. Yeah. Actually, speaking,
or
let's get back to,
ceramic magnets.
let's get back to Danger too, because
Oh yeah.
I wanted to mention a couple things. So like when I watched the show, I got this super like James Bond vibe, except where James Bond was kind of like a Robin Hood or kind of like a bad guy,
Right.
you know? Because he's got this badass like underground base. But then it's kind of weird because like he's the bad guy, but James Bond, like as a personality, like he's always kind of like, he meets a new girl every time, he's always got a new girl in every city, right? Where Danger like lives with his girlfriend, like they're kind of a couple, and she's like really devoted to him, like they're devoted to each other, which is really weird. It's like, he's this super, you know, Italian playboy, but he's very monogamous in the relationship, like with Ava, which is kind of funny, because it goes, I don't know, it's kind of funny. It works against like the standard, of the playboy type.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, he in all other ways, he doesn't seem like a bad guy, aside from like ripping off the government. He's not like like robbing individuals, except for that there was um the guy who had that tower.
Oh,
That
the
was
emeralds.
yeah, the emeralds. That was a private citizen,
He
but
was stealing from the rich. It was
yeah,
okay.
right.
He was going to give them to Ava too.
That's right. That's right.
She wanted the emerald necklace, right? So
Hmm.
he stole the emeralds for her. Yeah. Yeah, what was the other thing that I really liked was that it was like, I'm trying to remember how this worked out. Like basically he's like he blew up like all of the tax buildings.
Yes.
Yeah, like I forget how they phrase it, but he's just like they were like there's something in the movie where they're like, oh, what's he gonna do? And then like the building blows up and it's like, oh, that was the tax place, and then boom, the like the government tax center blows up and like all these other buildings blow up. And then the prime minister gets on the television and says like, oh, Diabolic has blown up all these things, but you all as good citizens will figure out how much tax you owe and pay us because we know that you're all good people. Like because he's like, we don't have any tax records left because he blew them all up, or something like that. Just
Yeah,
the
it's
whole
great.
idea of that was so funny.
And I think that idea was popular at that time. Like, if that happened in a James Bond movie today, I think, people wouldn't be people would be more sympathetic with the government, I suppose. Uh, Whereas I think that the point of that in the Danger Diabolik movie is that, the government's corrupt and they deserve to, to starve.
Oh yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, he's kind of the hero. Yeah. Just speaking of other funny scenes, there's a good one. Like he just stole the $10 million and he's driving away in a black Jaguar.
Mhm.
And there's a helicopter chasing him, and he's driving on the mountain road and he goes through this tunnel and the helicopter flies around the tunnel and they're waiting for him to come out the other side. And in the middle of the tunnel, he gets out of the car. Ava's in the tunnel in a white Jaguar, exactly the same car, but just white. So he gets in the white car and they drive out, and the helicopter is like, oh, what happened to Diabolic? There's just a white Jaguar. It just kind of cracked me up because it was exactly the same car, just different color, you know, and everybody's like, what happened? You know, where'd he go? You know, like,
I know it seems a little bit obvious, but he also, you know, he distracted them by sending the black Jaguar out the other end of the tunnel, right?
oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah, they crash it off the cliff, yeah, it was pretty fun, so there was a lot of good stuff there. I like when the ending where he's like, he he steals, like they I don't know why they did this, they don't really explain it, but like they decide to take all the gold in Italy and then turn it into like one giant gold bar. It's like the size of
Mhm.
like a small car or something. It's just this giant, and then they wrap that gold bar in a giant steel casket, you know, and then he steals it. They're like, he can't steal this, he steals it, right? Right. And then he's gonna use the giant laser to melt the gold. So he's melting the gold and it explodes, but he's wearing the heat proof suit. But like the gold like splashes on him and he's kind of frozen in this giant glob of gold, but you can see his face through the face mask, and Ava's saying goodbye, and then he winks at her. So he's alive, like inside the gold. But they stop it there. It was a great cliffhanger. I'm waiting for like
They're waiting for the sequel.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it was a comic, so I picture that's a total comic book ending. Like you could have the next episode, but I guess they never made it.
Right. Well, maybe in the comic they do. Because
Yeah,
it does seem like something that they would, they'd have to answer that.
yeah. I was trying to find the comic, and I found it, but you had to pay for it. I was trying to find a free version because I didn't really want to buy it. I just wanted to read it. Just like, I don't know. That's how I think, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
buy this. I just want to read it. That's what I do. Like if I go into the bookstores, it's like,
Yeah, maybe it's time to visit a bookstore and see if they have
yeah.
Diabolic, Danger Diabolik comics.
Yeah, if I could get it in print, I might buy it.
But yeah, it very much looks like it's. Oh yeah, yeah. Like buying a digital copy would be. I mean, I guess that's what people do nowadays, but it would be much cooler to have a physical copy of. But yeah, I mean, the movie, it's pretty clear that it's a comic. I didn't realize that when I first saw it, but it's pretty far out, in terms of the visuals.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, for
his
sure. Yeah, you
lair,
get yeah.
the costume, the just the kind of like the way that the action it plays out. Like, I mean, you brought up the way that the character, the Dragonfly character runs in the CQ movie that we talked about last week. I think this has some of that same kind of like the actions really played up, like the way that he poses when he's like, like getting ready to sneak or something like that. And we'll
Yeah.
get into this very kind of cartoony pose. The way he climbs the outside of the tower with that
Yeah, yeah.
climbing device, suction device.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the suction cups. Yeah, it was super good. I like that scene too where, he's stolen the $10 million and they're giving a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And Diabolic and Ava show up as reporters, and then they load a capsule. It was like excitability gas or something like that. They label it, right? Excitability gas, like into the camera. But then they open up another tin and it's got like anti-excitability drug. Like they each take a tablet, And then he takes a picture and the camera's kind of smoking and then everybody's inhaling the smoke and then they all start laughing, like everybody's laughing at this thing and then they just kind of sneak out, like it was kind of, that was super funny,
Yeah, that was actually kind of similar to the like the 60s Adam West Batman, in terms of like, that world
oh yeah,
where, you have antidotes, so, you have
yeah,
like
yeah,
laughing gas and anti-laughing gas, or pellets or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, it was very Batman, You know, I could see like a big Batman connection there. And he had the secret underground layer too, which was
Right.
super cool. I love the set for that underground layer. It looks super modern, you know.
Yeah.
You know, they had that like it was super modern. They had the shower with the glass wall, but then there's like Ava's taking a shower. There's this frosted glass circle like hanging down, you know, just covers her, you know, like right. Yeah, it was super good, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that place seemed actually very livable for being an underground lair. I mean, the bat cave is a little bit too, like it's a little bit that way in that it's not very claustrophobic. I could live in the bat cave, but I,
Yeah.
I think Diabolic's lair was cooler.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like you do live in the Batcave.
Yeah, my place is more like the bat cave.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was pretty good, you know, so I'd recommend that, you know. Um, let's see what else. Oh, one last thing, right? So not just change subject a little bit, but you know that speaking of that, maybe we should post a link to this, but speaking of the Boss tone bender, I ran into a video of a guy taking one apart. Like he basically he's like, yeah, I bought this Boss tone bender and I'm gonna just disassemble it. Like people do that on the internet nowadays. So it
Right.
was cool because like it's not cool if you just want to hear what they sound like or whatever. But if you're curious about how they work and how they're built, like he took the whole thing apart and looks on the inside and like it was kind of cool.
Hmm,
So you know, I'll put a link to that. You know, I
cool.
have it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
our notes, you know,
Okay.
but if
Awesome.
anybody wants to check that out, they should check it out. So let's wrap up. What are you gonna work on this week? You got any project plans?
Well, I'm gonna work on on the range master
Oh yeah, cool. Okay.
first and foremost, and I think uh I'm going to start working on my bass. Um, I know we're going to work on it together. I was going to route out the pickup cavity on the router, but I've decided I'm going to show how it's done with a drill and a Dremel with a base on it, and then I'll just do the whole thing in my apartment.
Yeah,
So
cool. Good luck.
that we'll make some videos about that, and I'll put those on the channel. Um, but yeah, I think that'll pretty much do it for me.
Yeah,
How about you?
cool.
What are you going to work on?
Well, I'm gonna work on this. So I got this Boss pedal. It's all taken apart. I got a circuit board here that I'm gonna put in it, and then I have a switch for it. And then I started, these are gonna be the pots. And so I set these up with this, like, I got a bunch of this ribbon cable from a computer, right? So I'd tear off like a strip of 3 wires, you know?
Mhm.
So this will be the wiring, you know? So I got that set up. So I just got to cram it all in this box here and then get that working. So that's going to be the project. And then I have another one of these Fuzz Factories, but I got to make the enclosure for it. So I got the board, right? So maybe I'll work on that too, you know? And then I got a blog post about these Fuzz Factories. So I made a video demo of them. So I'm gonna get that video demo going and then publish the blog post.
Great, and we'll put the link in the description when you
Yeah,
have that done.
yeah, right. So that's my goal this week. I think I'm off. Like my job just ended, and I don't know when the next job is gonna start yet. So I'm gonna just assume that I'm off this week because I haven't heard anything. So
Hmm,
you know,
crazy.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I wish that would happen to me. But it's like I wouldn't get paid for the time off.
I'm going to throw this out there. So I've heard that hunter gatherers, you know, like primitive people, they don't work half as much as we work.
Hmm.
You know, they go out, they gather some fruit and some nuts, and they're like, I'm done for the day. You know, they go kill a boar, and they're like, we got meat for a month. You know, right? And then the industrial revolution is what started people working like constantly, like all the time, like 5 days a week. You know, right? Or 7 days
Yeah,
a week. And then Henry Ford said everybody should work 5 days a week. You know, he invented the 5 day work week, right? You know, I feel like we work too much. People should work less.
I agree. I agree.
three,
I
four
think
days a week at most,
it would create more jobs if people worked fewer hours.
Yeah. I heard in Sweden, they demoed, like they did a test of like a 4-day work week. And I think they did 6-hour days too. So 6 hours, 4 days a week. And they said like people were just as productive and happier.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
So they paid them the same amount, but they would just work less. Yeah, because people just slack off. You get to a certain point in the day and you're like, I'm just burnt out, or you get to Friday and you're like, God, I'm just not going to get much done today because I'm just burnt out.
Right. Yeah, I think if you have less time, you just, you want to put all of your productive time into those hours, and then you're satisfied and you walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. I know if you go to work and you're fresh, you're like, okay, I'm going to be totally productive for this first 3 or 4 hours of the day. And then I'm going to take care of the emails and the business stuff with the last 2 hours, 6-hour day, you're done, go home. And you could get a lot done in those productive hours. And then if you have to be there for another 2 hours, like maybe there isn't anything you can get done, or there's just a bunch of wasted time because you're talking with people or like, I don't know, doing whatever. I mean, of course, like this, your CEO is like, why aren't you working hard? But I'm like, I don't know, man, I'm tired, like I need a break. I need to recharge my mental state.
Right. No, I think probably coffee is the only way that some companies are able to, work their employees as hard as they do. People aren't meant to work 40 hours in a row.
Yeah. No, it's too much work.
Hmm.
Okay, so you heard it here. I don't know about first, but Make Guitar is pushing for the 4-day 6-hour work week. Are you
Yeah.
with us?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that it's like when we eventually quit our day jobs and just do Make Guitar stuff, we'll never work more than what, like 30 hours
Yeah, for sure,
a week.
right? 24, 24-hour weeks.
24. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
4 days,
Yeah.
6 hours.
Right. That leaves a lot more hours in the week to, um, contemplate and to play and, to get inspired.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. You got and want to sign off anything you want to say to our hundreds of
Well,
followers?
we didn't talk about Dusty Hill. I just, I just want to
Oh
acknowledge,
yeah.
that um ZZ Top is one of the only bands that can say that they have the same lineup from the late 60s until today. I mean, it is really the end of an era. I mean, I know like Billy Gibbons has his solo project with I can't remember what they're called. Um, but yeah, ZZ Top, such as it was, no longer. Um,
Yeah. I had read something where they said that I guess in a recent concert, Dusty wasn't feeling well, so he couldn't play. So his tech played bass,
yeah, I heard that.
you know. So he was maybe having some health issues, Like I don't know though, maybe that was something else. I don't know, but
Well, I heard he had a hip problems, and I think he maybe had to go in for hip surgery or something like that.
oh, okay.
Um,
How
it's
old
a
how old was he?
he was 72.
That's pretty old to be still rocking.
Yeah, it is. Um, I mean, the Rolling Stones, they're pretty old to be still rocking, but they're still rocking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those guys are really old.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Mick and Keith. Yeah, I didn't mean it that way. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think they know.
yeah. ZZ Top's kind of amazing. I'm not like 100% into ZZ Top. Like I like some of their songs. They got some good songs. And then they've been around forever. They And they have a thing like that's unique
Hmm.
in their thing. So I feel like they blaze some territory, you know. I mean, they also kind of milked the blues thing, right? They kind of took it. I mean, they do make it their own, you know, but they basically like got on the blues train and said, we're gonna just do this like 100%, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, there's a really great documentary on Netflix, if you have Netflix, called "That Little Band from Texas,"
Yeah.
and it kind of explains, how ZZ Top in the '80s happened. You know, they they kind of, they had to say like, we're not Michael Jackson or Duran Duran or, Billy Idol. So what is a band that looks like us and sounds like us going to do in the '80s? And they found it. You know,
Yeah.
that Eliminator album that came out, it had, that synth bass all over the place. Um, but it was still their sound. There's not like a miles long distance from their, cheap sunglasses sound to the sound of Legs, or the other songs on that album. But I
Yeah.
think that was the first big hit of that album.
Yeah. I like that song Nationwide. Have you heard that one?
I have not.
Oh, go look up Nationwide. It's pretty
Okay, I will check it out. um, One of my coworkers just mentioned to me their first album is called ZZ Top's first album.
good.
And he said it's great. So
Oh, good. I'll have to look
that's
that one up.
yeah, that's on my list
Yeah.
of music to listen to this week.
Yeah.
Have you been listening to anything? You have anything
Oh,
on Bandcamp that you've been?
yeah, I listened to some, I guess, shoegazer music. It's like I listened to this band called Cluster Sun,
Hmm,
and then another band. I had an album of theirs like a long time ago called M83. They're French. They're kind of
oh,
shoegazer,
interesting.
kind of like
Because that's a band
synth
too.
rock. I don't know what to call them. They're kind of weird, but they're kind of good. Kind of ambient, you know.
Oh, I'm familiar with M83,
Oh,
but you're
okay.
saying Cluster Sun
Yeah.
was has a band or has an album called that?
No, Cluster Sun. I don't know what their album is called. I
Oh,
just
okay.
found them on Bandcamp, you know, and I was
All
like,
right.
I'll listen to this, and it was kind of
Sorry,
good.
it's the lag.
Yeah, yeah, I like M83. I had them on. I had a CD of theirs like maybe 10 years ago, maybe not quite that long ago, um, but then like when I got rid of all my CDs, like I don't have it anymore, you know. So there's like a bunch of music that kind of like, you know what I mean? Because you listen to
Hmm.
something, you get tired of it, and then later you think back, you're like, what happened to that? And nowadays,
Oh,
nowadays I don't even have a
I'm a
CD
collector.
player, you know, so I
Yeah,
can't.
I have a lot of MP3s from the CD days. I burned everything. So
Oh,
yeah,
good. Yeah, good for
like
you.
yeah, that would be that'd be hard to, you know, it'd be hard to not have access to that music because you can't get everything on YouTube and Bandcamp.
Yeah, I know, right? You know, so now I'm kind of regretting it. I tried to get rid of all the CDs because I just had stacks and stacks of CDs. I just didn't want to store them all, you know. And I guess at the
Mhm.
time I was like, you know, I don't need to like burn these, you know, so I'll just get rid of them, you know. I'm listening to different music now, you know, but then you kind of cycle around and you come back to stuff, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll look around and see if I have it. I could uh, send you the album.
Yeah, so I was listening to that, and then I was listening to what else did I listen? I think I listened to a little Church of the Cosmic Skull.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, listen to those guys, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I only listened to that one album. I don't remember which album, but I listened to one
Yeah.
album of theirs. Have you listened to a place to bury your dead? Is that what it's called? A
Oh, no, I
place.
haven't heard that. I'll have to check that out.
It's the guy who started those Death by Audio pedals, or who makes those. It's called A Place to Bury Strangers. Is the name of the band.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check those guys out.
It's really good. It's very well, it's very noisy. A lot of fuzz, of course, a lot of fuzz and wah, and uh, it kind of has a little bit of early Jesus and Mary Chain kind of a sound, like Psycho Candy and Barbed Wire Kisses kind of.
Oh, cool.
The guy's voice is a little lower than a lot
Yeah.
of that's I think that's part of what makes me think of JMC.
Yeah. Yeah. The JHS guy did a interview with the guy from Death by Audio.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
just
watched.
watched that. It was kind of good. It was kind of interesting. He talks about how he got started on pedal making and stuff and about the pedals and you know. Yeah, it was
Yeah, I
kind of
watched
good.
about half of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't stop for any reason. Just ran out of time, but yeah, his music is pretty good too. So check it out.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think that ought to do it. Until next time, um, we'll come up with some more things to talk about next week. Another movie.
Yeah.
Listen to some new music.
Yeah. Okay. See you
All
later.
right. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you the next time.